The morning sun peeked through thin curtains as Hannah opened her small animal clinic. 5 years had passed since she first came to Earth. 5 years since the Ardeni High Council had called her a traitor and sent her away from her home planet. Hannah looked at her hands. They appeared human now. 5 fingers, pink skin, short nails. Her disguise technology worked perfectly. No one in this small South Korean town knew she was actually an alien with blue skin, 6 fingers, and eyes that could see into the bodies of living things. Another day of hiding, she whispered to herself. Hannah had once been the most respected healer on Ardani. She had saved countless lives with her special skills in medicine. But then she had made one big mistake. She had spoken up against the High Council when they refused to share medical help with lesser species like humans. Healers must heal all who suffer, she had told them. It is wrong to keep our knowledge only for ourselves. For that, they had taken everything from her. Her position at the Royal Medical Academy, her research, her home. They had given her 2 choices, prison for life or exile to Earth with no way to return. She had chosen Earth. Now she lived as a simple vet in a small town where people brought their sick animals to her. It was not the life she had planned, but at least she could still heal. She used mostly Earth medicine, careful not to show her true healing powers that could fix almost any illness with a touch. Dr. Kim, good morning, called Mrs. Lee as she entered the clinic with her cat. Everyone knew Hannah as Dr. Kim Hannah, a quiet woman who had moved from Seoul to open a small animal clinic. Good morning, Hannah said with a smile. How is Bomi today? As Hannah checked the cat, her mind wandered back to her home world. Ardeni was beautiful. 3 moons hanging in a purple sky, floating cities and medical science so advanced it seemed like magic to most species. Her people lived for hundreds of years, freed from most illnesses. Yet they were cold. The Ardeni believed they were superior to all other life forms. They watched other worlds but never helped. Even when they saw suffering they could easily fix. That was why Hannah had spoken up. When she discovered the council had been watching a virus spread on a small colony world without offering help, she had publicly challenged them. She had even started to share medical information with the colony secretly. The Ardeni did not forgive such actions. You seem far away today, Dr. Kim, Mrs. Lee said as Hannah finished the checkup. Just thinking, Hannah replied. Bomi is doing much better. The medicine is working well. After Mrs. Lee left, Hannah locked the clinic door and went to her small apartment upstairs. There, she pressed a hidden button on her wristband. Her human disguise flickered off, revealing her true form. Blue skin with a slight shimmer, large, deep purple eyes, the 6 fingers she had been born with. She sat by the window, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there was her home world. She would never see it again. Her communication device beeped, a rare event. It was connected to an old Ardani emergency network that most had forgotten existed. She almost never received messages. Hannah opened it to find a warning. The message said a dangerous disease had been detected near Earth, something not natural to this world. They're finally coming, she whispered, her hearts beating faster. Just as I warned them. She looked down at the small town where she had built her new life. These people knew nothing of other worlds or the dangers that might come from the stars. She had a choice to make, stay hidden and safe, or risk everything again. Outside, a dog barked, and someone knocked on her clinic door, even though it was now closed. Hannah quickly reactivated her human disguise. Little did she know, the knock on her door would change everything. Hannah rushed down the stairs, wondering who would knock after closing hours. When she opened the door, she found a tall man holding a large dog in his arms. The dog was not moving much. Its breathing was shallow. Please help, the man said. His eyes were red from crying. The other vets said nothing can be done, but someone told me you might help. Hannah looked at the dog. Even without using her alien powers, she could see the animal was very sick. Come in, she said, stepping aside. Put him on the table. The man laid the dog down gently on the exam table. He stroked its head with shaking hands. "I'm Kim Jiho," the man said. "This is Don. He's been with me for 8 years. He helps me on my farm." Jiho's voice broke. "He's more than a dog. He's my friend." Hana nodded. She watched how carefully Jiho touched his dog. On her world, animals were not kept as companions. The Ardani saw other creatures as lesser beings, useful for study, but not worthy of love. Yet here was this human, crying over his sick animal friend. "How long has he been sick?" Hana asked, checking the dog's pulse. 3 days, Jiho said. "First he stopped eating. Then he got very weak. This morning, he couldn't stand up." Hana examined the dog carefully, using only normal human medical tools. She took his temperature, listened to his heart, and checked his eyes. But she already knew this was no normal sickness. "What did the other vets say?" she asked. "They said they don't know what's wrong. They gave him medicines, but nothing worked." Jiho wiped his eyes. "One said I should put him down, that he's suffering. But I can't give up on him." Hana looked at the farmer. His hands were rough from hard work. His clothes were simple but clean. There was kindness in his eyes. "Why did you come to me?" she asked. "My clinic is small. I'm new here. Old Mr. Park said you saved his goat when no one else could. He said you have a special touch." Joe looked at her with hope. "I'll pay anything. I don't have much money, but I can work for you. I can fix things, grow food for you." Hana turned back to the dog. She knew using only earth medicine would not save him. The dog was infected with something she had seen before. Not on Earth, but on a planet in the city system. It was a parasite that attacked the nervous system. Without her alien medicine, the dog would die within hours. If she used her real healing powers, Jiho might notice something strange. He might see her hands glow slightly. He might wonder why his dog recovered so quickly. It could put her secret at risk. Yet as she watched Jiho stroke his dog's head, whispering soft words of comfort, something moved inside her. On Ardani, she had fought for the right to help all beings who suffered. Now she was hiding her gifts, letting fear rule her actions. "I need to get something from upstairs," she said suddenly. "Stay with him." In her apartment, Hana opened a hidden panel in the wall. Inside was a small box with medical supplies from her world. She had kept them for emergencies only. Using them might draw attention, but she couldn't stand by and watch the dog die. When she came back downstairs, Jiho was sitting on the floor next to the table, his head resting against it, his hand on Don's paw. "I will try to help him," Hana said, "but I need you to trust me. Some of what I do might seem unusual." Jiho looked up, new hope in his tired eyes. "I trust you," he said simply. "Please save my friend." Hana took a deep breath and began to work, knowing this moment might change everything. Hana spread her medical tools on a small table next to Don. She had both earth tools and, hidden from Jiho's view, her Ardani healing devices. The dog's breathing was getting worse. Time was running out. "Can you help him?" Jiho asked. His voice was quiet but full of worry. Hana looked closely at Don. With her special Ardani vision, she could see tiny creatures moving through the dog's blood. They were attacking his brain and spine. No earth medicine could fight them. "This is a very rare sickness," she said carefully. "I've seen it before, in my studies." Jiho watched her face. "But can you cure it?" Hana touched Don's fur gently. She had a choice to make. She could try earth medicine and watch the dog die, keeping her secret safe. Or she could use her real powers and risk everything. 5 years of hiding. 5 years of being careful. Was she ready to risk it all for a dog? She looked at Jiho again. His eyes were red from crying, but there was something else there too. Trust, hope, love for his animal friend. In that moment, Hana remembered why she had stood up to the High Council. "I will need to try something different," she said. "Something that isn't common medicine." "Anything," Jiho said. I don't care what it is. Hana nodded. I need you to get some water in that bowl. And then, I need you to turn around. Turn around. Why? Please. Trust me. Jiho looked confused but did as she asked. He filled a bowl with water and then turned to face the wall. Hana quickly took out a small silver device from her pocket. It was an Ardani medical scanner, no bigger than her thumb. She passed it over Dawn's body. The device showed her exactly what was wrong. The parasites were spreading fast. Next, she took out a tiny vial of blue liquid. This was medicine from her world. It would kill the parasites without hurting the dog. She mixed it with the water in the bowl. Can I turn around now? Joe asked. Not yet, Hana said. She needed to do one more thing, the most dangerous part. Hana placed her hands on Dawn's head and chest. Then she closed her eyes and let her disguise drop just a tiny bit. Not enough for her to look alien, but enough to let her natural healing energy flow. Her hands began to glow with a soft blue light. The energy passed from her into the dog's body, guiding the medicine, strengthening Dawn's fight against the parasites. I feel warmth, Jiho said suddenly. And I see light. What is happening? Hana's heart jumped. He had turned around too soon. But she couldn't stop now. Dawn needed a few more seconds of her healing touch. It's a special treatment, she said quickly. Please, let me finish. To her surprise, Joe didn't look afraid. He watched with wide eyes as the blue light moved from her hands into his dog. Instead of running away or shouting, he stayed quiet, watching in wonder. Finally, the light faded. Hana quickly fixed her disguise and stepped back. Her legs felt weak. She had used a lot of energy, and she had revealed part of her true nature to a human. What did you just do? Joe whispered. He wasn't angry or scared. He sounded amazed. Before Hana could answer, Dawn made a small noise. The dog's eyes opened. His tail moved slightly. Dawn. Joe rushed to his pet's side. The dog lifted his head and licked Jiho's hand weakly. He will need to rest, Hana said, her voice shaking a little. And drink the medicine in the bowl over the next day. But the worst is over. He will live. Jiho looked up at her with tears in his eyes. But these were happy tears. Thank you, he said. But who are you really, Dr. Kim? Hana took a deep breath. There was no going back now. For a long moment, Hana said nothing. Her mind raced with possible lies she could tell. I asked who you really are, Jiho said again. His voice was soft, not angry. He kept one hand on Dawn, who was already looking much better. I'm just a vet who knows some unusual healing methods, Hana said at last. Jiho shook his head slowly. I saw the blue light. I felt the energy in the room. That was not normal medicine. Hana moved to her desk and sat down. Her legs felt weak. In 5 years on Earth, no human had ever seen her use her real powers. If I tell you the truth, you won't believe me, she said. And if you did believe me, you might be afraid. Jiho looked at Dawn, who was now sitting up on the table. The dog's eyes were clear again. His tail wagged slowly. You saved him when everyone else said he would die. Jiho said, I don't care if your methods are strange. I'm not afraid. Before Hana could answer, Dawn stood up on the table. His legs were steady. He barked once, then jumped down and walked to Jiho. This is impossible, Jiho whispered. He couldn't even lift his head an hour ago. Hana watched as the dog moved around the room, sniffing at corners, his energy returning minute by minute. The Ardani medicine worked much faster than Earth medicine. Too fast. No normal treatment could heal a dog this quickly. You should take him home, Hana said. Come back tomorrow. We can talk more then. But Jiho didn't move. No. I need to know now. What did you do to him? Hana sighed. She could try to make him leave, but she had a feeling he would not go easily. The medicine I used, she began, it's not available here. It's from far away. How far? Hana pointed up, toward the ceiling, toward the sky beyond. Jiho's eyes widened. You mean? Hana nodded slowly. To her surprise, Jiho didn't look scared. Instead, he smiled. I knew there had to be others out there. The universe is too big for just us. You're not afraid? Hana asked. Should I be? You used your powers to heal, not harm. Dawn came back to Jiho and pressed against his leg. The dog looked up at Hana and wagged his tail. There was no fear in his eyes either. So what planet are you from? Jiho asked, as if he were asking about a city or country. Hana couldn't help but laugh. This was not how she had imagined a human would react to meeting an alien. It's called Ardani, she said. It's very far from here. Why are you on Earth? Are there others like you here? Hana raised her hand to stop his questions. That's enough for today. You should take Dawn home and let him rest. The medicine is still working inside him. Jiho nodded and picked up Dawn's leash. The dog followed him to the door. There, Jiho stopped and turned back. I won't tell anyone, he said. Your secret is safe with me. Why would you protect me? Hana asked. You don't even know me. Jiho looked at Dawn, then back at Hana. You could have let my dog die to keep your secret. Instead, you risked everything to save him. That tells me enough about who you are. After Jiho left, Hana locked the door and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking. The human knew her secret now. This changed everything. But instead of fear, she felt something else. For the first time in 5 years, she had used her real healing powers. She had helped a living being without hiding her true self. It felt right. It felt like coming home. That night, as she looked up at the stars, Hana wondered if saving one dog might be the first step on a new path. She didn't know that Jiho was also looking at the stars, thinking about the blue light he had seen, and planning to return to her clinic with something important to share. The next morning, Hana opened her clinic early. She couldn't sleep much. All night, she worried about what would happen now that Jiho knew her secret. At 9 o'clock, the clinic door opened. Jiho walked in with Dawn at his side. The dog looked completely healthy, walking and wagging his tail as if he had never been sick. Good morning, Jiho said. He carried a small wooden box under his arm. How is Dawn today? Hana asked, watching the dog carefully. He's perfect. He ate a big breakfast. He ran around the farm. No one would believe he was dying yesterday. Jiho smiled. It's a miracle. Hana checked Dawn quickly. The parasites were completely gone. The Ardani medicine had worked perfectly. I'm glad to see him well, she said, but you should be careful who you tell about his quick recovery. People might ask questions. Jiho nodded. I know. I told my neighbors he's on new medicine that's working well. I didn't say he was completely cured in one day. Hana relaxed a little. That's good. I brought something to show you, Jiho said. He placed the wooden box on her desk and opened it. Inside was an old notebook with yellow pages and a small metal object that looked like a coin. This belonged to my grandfather, Jiho explained. He was a young boy during the Korean War. These are his writings and a gift he was given. Hana looked at the notebook. It was written in Korean, which she could read thanks to her language translator technology. What does this have to do with me? She asked. Please read this page, Jiho said, opening the notebook carefully to a marked page. Hana read the faded words. The story told how Jiho's grandfather had been badly hurt during a bombing in the war. He was left alone in a destroyed village. Everyone thought he would die. But a strange person found him and healed him. The writer described a tall person with eyes like deep pools of purple water and hands that glowed with blue light. Hana's heart beat faster. The description matched an Ardani. My grandfather said a star being saved him, Jiho said quietly. Everyone thought it was just a child's imagination or a dream from his fever. But he never changed his story, even when he was an old man. Jiho picked up the metal coin-like object. The star being gave him this before disappearing. Hannah took the object with shaking hands. It wasn't a coin. It was an Ardani medical badge, the kind given to field healers on research missions. "This is impossible," she whispered. "No Ardani has been to Earth since." "Since when?" Joe asked. Hannah's mind raced. There had been stories about a medical scout who disappeared on Earth nearly 70 years ago. The High Council said the scout had died. But what if they had lied? "There was an Ardani medical scout sent to Earth during what you call the Korean War," she said slowly. "My people were watching your war from orbit. The scout was supposed to collect data on human injuries and diseases, not to make contact, and never to heal humans. But this one did," Jiho said. Hannah nodded, and then vanished. "We were told the scout died." "Maybe the scout chose to stay," Jiho suggested. "Like you." Hannah stared at the badge. It had a name written in Ardani symbols. Dr. Toru, one of the most respected medical minds of that generation. "If this is real, it means I'm not the only Ardani who chose Earth over our home world," Hannah said. "It means there might be others. Others who believe healing comes before rules." Joe asked. Hannah looked up at him. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. "I need to find out if there are more of my people here," she said. "If Dr. Toru stayed on Earth, there might be records, or—" Her words stopped as her communication device beeped again from upstairs. "What is that sound?" Joe asked. "A message," Hannah said. "And I think it might be from someone who knows more about this than we do." Hannah rushed upstairs to her apartment, with Jiho following behind. Don stayed close to his owner, watching everything with curious eyes. In her apartment, Hannah reached for the small silver device that was blinking with a new message. She hesitated, then looked at Jiho. "Are you sure you want to be part of this?" she asked. "Once you know more, there's no going back." Jiho nodded. "I already crossed that line when I saw you heal Dawn." Hannah pressed a button on the device. A hologram appeared in the air, a map of their area with several glowing dots. One dot was right where they stood. The others were spread around the countryside. "What is this?" Joe asked, his eyes wide at the floating map. "It's a response to my alert," Hannah said, her voice filled with surprise. "These dots are Ardeni life signs. There are more of your people here, near us." Hannah stared at the map in wonder. "At least 5, within 50 miles of here. They must have been here all along, hiding like me." The device beeped again, and words in Ardani script appeared under the map. Hannah read them quickly. "It's a message from someone called Miro," she explained to Jiho. "He says he's been on Earth for 40 years. He's calling a meeting of all Ardani in the area. Tonight." "Why now?" Joe asked. "Because of my alert about the parasite that infected Dawn." Hannah's face grew serious. "Miro says it's not just your dog. They've been tracking cases in wildlife and farm animals across the region. It's spreading." Jiho frowned. "Is it dangerous to humans?" "Not yet," Hannah said. "But Miro thinks it might adapt. This parasite isn't natural to Earth. It's engineered." "Engineered? You mean someone made it?" Hannah nodded slowly. "The High Council always said they feared other species might attack Earth, but I'm starting to think they might have known more than they told us." She pressed another button, and the hologram changed to show a microscopic view of the parasite from Dawn's blood. "This is a Makari bioweapon," she said. "The Makari are old enemies of both Ardani and humans, though your people don't know it. They tried to settle Earth thousands of years ago, but your planet's environment was toxic to them. They've hated humans ever since. And they're attacking now, with a disease." Joe looked worried. "Starting with animals, yes." Hannah studied the hologram. "But why would the Makari attack now, after all this time?" The device beeped once more. New words appeared. "Bring the human who knows," Hannah read aloud. "We need all allies now." "They want me to come too?" Joe asked. "Yes. It seems Miro knows I revealed myself to you. Hannah looked at him carefully. But how could he know that? Jiho pointed to Dawn. Maybe they've been watching. Maybe they saw Dawn get sick and get better too fast. Hannah considered this. That would mean they've been monitoring me since I arrived. All these years, I thought I was alone, but they were nearby, watching. Why didn't they contact you before? Good question. Hannah turned off the device. I guess we'll find out tonight. As evening approached, Hannah packed some of her Ardani medical tools. She wasn't sure what to expect at this meeting. Jiho came back after dark with Dawn. Ready? He asked. Hannah nodded, though she felt nervous. 5 years of hiding, and now she was about to meet others like her. They followed the map on Hannah's device to an old barn far from town. As they approached, Dawn suddenly stopped and growled. What's wrong? Joe asked. Before Hannah could answer, the barn door opened. A tall figure stood in the doorway. In the moonlight, Hannah could see the blue skin and purple eyes of another Ardani. Dr. Hannah, the figure said, we've been waiting for you. There's not much time. Time for what? Hannah asked. To stop what's coming, the Ardani said. The truth is much worse than you know. Hannah and Jiho followed the tall Ardani into the barn. Inside, 4 other blue-skinned aliens waited. They all looked at Jiho with surprise. You brought the human into our meeting, one of them asked. Miro invited him, Hannah said, standing tall. And his name is Jiho. The Ardani, who had greeted them at the door, nodded. I am Miro. I've been on Earth for 42 years. He pointed to the others. This is Lena, Ren, Toru, and Kasa. Hannah gasped. Toru, the medical scout who disappeared during the Earth War. An older Ardani stepped forward. His blue skin had faded to a lighter shade with age. Yes, I chose to stay on Earth after seeing the courage of humans during their war. I could not stand by and just watch them suffer. Just like I couldn't, Hannah said softly. Miro moved to a table in the center of the barn. On it was a large screen showing maps and data. We don't have time for long stories. The situation is worse than we feared. He touched the screen, and it showed images of sick animals across the region. Deer, cattle, birds, and many pets. The Makari parasite has spread faster than we predicted, Miro explained. It's already mutating to affect different animal species. But why? Joe asked. Why would these Makari attack Earth now? The female Ardani called Lena answered. Because the High Council made a deal with them. What? Hannah couldn't believe her ears. Our people would never work with the Makari. They did, Toru said sadly. We discovered the truth years ago. The High Council feared that humans would one day become too powerful. They saw your potential. Humans evolve and adapt faster than any species we've encountered. Miro nodded. The Council made a secret agreement with the Makari. They would allow the Makari to release their bioweapon on Earth, weakening humanity before you could develop space travel. That's why I was exiled, Hannah said as understanding dawned on her. Not just because I wanted to help lesser species. They knew I would discover their plan if I kept studying Earth diseases. Yes, Kasa spoke for the first time. We were all exiled for similar reasons. The Council called us traitors, but they were the true traitors to everything Ardeni stand for. How bad will this get? Joe asked, looking worried. Will it start affecting humans soon? Ren, who had been quiet until now, touched the screen to show new data. It's already beginning. We found 3 human cases in a town 50 miles from here. The doctors think it's a new type of meningitis. They don't know how to treat it. Jiho looked at Dawn, who was sleeping peacefully at his feet. Can your medicine help humans too? Like it helped Dawn. Yes, Hannah said. But we don't have enough for everyone who will get sick, and we can't reveal ourselves to the whole world. We need to do more than just treat the sick, Miro said firmly. We need to create a cure that Earth doctors can make and use, and we need to stop the source of the infection. How? Hannah asked. Toru smiled slightly. That's why we needed you, Hana. You were the best medical researcher on Ardani. With your knowledge and our combined resources, we might be able to develop a treatment that can be made with Earth materials. Lena pointed to Jiho. And we need humans like him who can help distribute the cure without raising questions about where it came from. Jiho straightened his shoulders. I'll help any way I can. Suddenly, all their devices beeped at once. Miro checked the alert, and his face grew dark. The parasite has mutated again, he said. It's spreading much faster now, moving through water supplies. How long do we have? Hana asked. Days, maybe weeks before it becomes a global crisis, Miro answered. We need to work fast. Hana looked around at the other Ardani and then at Jiho. For the first time in years, she felt like she had a true purpose again. Then let's get started, she said. For the next 3 days, Hana barely slept. She worked in a hidden lab that the Ardani exiles had built under Toru's farm. Their combined medical knowledge and equipment were impressive, but time was running out. The parasite is in the city water system now, Miro reported on the morning of the 4th day. The human hospitals are filling with sick people. Hana looked up from her microscope. I think I'm close to understanding how the parasite adapts to different hosts. It changes its outer shell to match each species. Jiho had been helping by bringing supplies and information from town. He entered the lab with new reports. The news says it's a brain infection that started in animals and jumped to humans, he said. They're telling people to boil water and avoid contact with sick animals. Good advice, but not enough, Toru said. Once the parasite enters the human body, boiling water won't help. Hana turned to Lena, who was working with Earth medicines. Any progress with combining our treatments with human drugs? Lena nodded. Yes, Earth has a medicine called penicillin that, when mixed with our healing compound, slows the parasite. It doesn't kill it, but it buys time. We need more than time, Ren said. We need a cure. Hana stared at the sample under her microscope. Something was bothering her. The parasite was complex, too complex for even the Makari to design. I think we're missing something, she said. This parasite is part Makari technology, but also seems to contain elements of. She stopped, not wanting to say what she suspected. Elements of what? Joe asked. Ardani biotechnology, she finished. I think the High Council didn't just allow the Makari to attack Earth. They helped design the weapon. The room went silent. The idea that their own people had helped create this deadly parasite was hard to accept. If that's true, Casa said slowly, then we might be able to use Ardani countermeasures against it. Hana shook her head. I doubt the Council would be so careless. They would have changed the base code enough to make their countermeasures useless. Then what do we do? Joe asked. Hana looked at him, thinking. Humans were different from Ardani in many ways, but they also had strengths her people lacked. Jiho, may I have some of your blood? She asked suddenly. He rolled up his sleeve. Of course, but why? I want to see how the parasite reacts to human immune cells, she explained as she took a small blood sample. Your bodies might fight this differently than ours would. Hana mixed Jiho's blood with a sample of the parasite and watched through the microscope. At first, nothing happened. Then, to her surprise, the human white blood cells began to surround the parasite in a way she had never seen before. This is amazing, she whispered. Look at this, Toru. The older Ardani examined the sample. The human immune response is attacking the parasite's outer shell, where our treatments couldn't penetrate. How is this possible? Because the parasite was designed to resist Ardani medicine, Hana said excitedly. But human immune systems work differently. The Council didn't account for that. Lena joined them. Can we use this? Yes, Hana said. If we combine human antibodies with our compounds, we might create something the parasite can't defend against. For the next day, they worked to create a new treatment using Jiho's blood cells as a model. By evening, They had produced a small batch of medicine that could be added to regular human antibiotics. It works in the lab samples, Hannah said, but we need to test it on actual patients. I can get it to the hospital, Joe offered. My cousin works there as a nurse. She can help without asking too many questions. Miro looked worried. If this fails, it won't, Hannah said with certainty. The High Council made one big mistake when they helped create this weapon. They never truly understood humans. Jiho smiled. What didn't they understand? That your species doesn't give up, Hannah said. And neither do we. 3 weeks later, Hannah stood by the window in her clinic, watching people walk by outside. The streets were full again. The sickness was ending. Their medicine had worked better than anyone hoped. Jiho's cousin had given it to the sickest patients first, calling it an experimental treatment. Within days, those patients recovered. Soon, doctors across the country were using the cure. The door opened, and Jiho walked in with Dawn. The dog looked healthy and happy, just as he had sensed that first night when everything changed. Good news, Jiho said with a big smile. The World Health Organization says cases are down by 80%. They're calling it a miracle. Hannah smiled. No one suspects where the cure really came from. No, scientists think they developed it themselves. Some doctor in Seoul is taking credit for the breakthrough. Good. That's how it should be, Hannah said. Jiho sat down on a chair near her desk. Miro sent a message. He says you should see this. He handed her a small device, an Ardani news receiver. On its screen was a report from their home world. The High Council was in chaos. Someone had sent proof of their deal with the Makari to every citizen on Ardani. The people were angry. There were protests in the streets. Who sent the evidence? Hannah asked. Toru did, Jiho said. He kept records of everything he learned over the years. When we created the cure, he decided it was time for your people to know the truth. Hannah watched the screen in wonder. The report showed crowds of Ardani demanding new leaders and a new relationship with Earth. They wanted to help humans, not hurt them. The council is finished, she said softly. Everything will change now. The device beeped with a new message. It was from the leader of the citizen movement on Ardani. They wanted Hannah and the other exiles to come home. They would be welcomed as heroes, not traitors. Will you go back? Joe asked. His voice was quiet, and he didn't look at her. Hannah put down the device and looked around her small clinic. For 5 years, this place had been her prison. She had dreamed of going home. Now that dream could come true. No, she said finally. My work is here now. Jiho looked up in surprise. But your people need you. You could help change Ardani for the better. Others can do that, Hannah said. What I learned here on Earth is too important to leave behind. When we mixed Ardani medicine with human biology, we created something new, something that could help both our worlds. She walked to her desk and picked up a plan she had been working on. It showed designs for a new medical center, much bigger than her small clinic. With the technology we have and the unique way human bodies work, we could develop cures for diseases across the galaxy, she explained. I want to build a place where Ardani and human doctors can work together. An Ardani Human Medical Exchange, Jiho said, reading the title on her plans. Yes, the first of its kind. Hannah looked at him hopefully. I'll need help from someone who understands both worlds now. Someone who isn't afraid of aliens or new ideas. Jiho smiled. I think I know someone like that. Dawn barked once, as if in agreement. Outside, they could hear children playing again, people laughing. Life returning to normal. But for Hannah, nothing would ever be normal again. The path ahead was new and uncertain, but for the first time in years, she felt she was where she belonged. It's strange, she said, watching Dawn curl up happily at their feet. I came to Earth as punishment, as exile. I was alone and lost. Then a dying dog brought me back to who I really am. And what is that? Joe asked. A healer, Hannah said simply. Not an Ardeni healer or a human doctor, but just a healer. Someone who helps life, no matter what form it takes. As the afternoon sun filled the room with warm light, Hannah knew this small planet, once her prison, had become her true home, and saving one small life had led her to her real destiny.